From Inc.com, this is the Inc. Productivity Tip. Expert opinions, valuable insight, and helpful advice from today's top business coaches, thought leaders, and entrepreneurs. As businesses grow, they tend to accumulate more services, more tools, and more steps in every process. Each addition feels justified at the time. Over a few years, the business becomes harder to run, explain, and scale. The complexity that built up gradually starts to slow everything down. Most owners know this is happening. They feel it. What is less obvious is that simplifying is not just a cleanup project. It is a competitive move. So start by looking at your operations and asking what no longer earns its place. Services you added for one client and kept offering. Tools your team works around rather than with. Steps in a process that exist because they always have, not because they do anything useful. Everything unnecessary adds weight. It costs someone's time, attention, or decision-making capacity. The question is not whether something was worth adding when you added it. The question is whether it still is. Once you know which processes deliver consistent results, make them the default. Stop letting each person on your team develop their own version of the same workflow. Variation creates errors and makes it harder to diagnose what went wrong when something does. Standardization also makes training faster. When there is a clear way to do something, new people learn it once and execute it reliably. That compounds quickly as you grow. A team of 10 running the same system outperforms a team of 10, each running their own. Every unnecessary choice costs something. Too many options slow your team down and create inconsistent outcomes. Too many options slow your customers down and create friction at the point of purchase. Limit the choices available in both directions. Fewer service tiers, fewer internal variations, fewer tools doing overlapping things. Clear options lead to faster decisions, and faster decisions create momentum. And this is one of the least obvious places where simplicity directly affects revenue. And finally, focus on your core strengths. Spreading across too many offerings makes it hard to excel at any of them. Your best work lives in a narrow range of things you do genuinely well. That is where your margins are the highest, your delivery is most consistent, and your reputation is strongest. Adding adjacent services feels like growth. Often it is just dilution. The businesses that scale most cleanly tend to be the ones that resisted the urge to expand their offering every time an opportunity appeared. Simplicity is not about doing less work. It is about removing what does not matter so you can do the right work better. Those are different things, and conflating them is why simplifying feels risky when it is clarifying. A simpler business is easier to run, easier to explain to a prospective client, and easier to hand off to a team that does not need you in every conversation. That is not a small thing. That is what makes a business scalable rather than just busy. Accountability is one of the most misunderstood concepts in business. Many leaders interpret it as following up more aggressively, checking in more often, or applying more pressure when things slip. That approach creates anxiety, not accountability. People start managing their boss's perception instead of managing their results. Real accountability comes from clarity and structure, not intensity. So, first off, define clear outcomes, because you cannot hold someone accountable for a vague expectation. Improve sales is not an outcome. Close 5 new deals per week is. The difference matters because vague expectations shift accountability to interpretation. When the standard is unclear, every underperformance becomes a conversation about what was meant rather than what happened. Define the specific result each person is responsible for delivering. Put a number on it when you can. Clarity does not just make accountability easier to enforce. It makes it easier for people to own their work without being managed closely. Secondly, set a regular rhythm. Accountability requires a consistent structure to live in. A weekly check-in, a scorecard review, a standing meeting where results get discussed openly. Without that rhythm, accountability becomes occasional, and occasional accountability is not accountability at all. It is just pressure that shows up unpredictably. The cadence matters less than the consistency. Pick a frequency that fits your business and hold it. Over time, the rhythm itself does a lot of the work because everyone knows the conversation is coming and prepares accordingly. Third, make results visible. Because when performance data is visible to the team, behavior shifts without anyone having to say anything. People self-correct when they can see where they stand. They also tend to compete with their own past performance in ways that a private conversation with a manager rarely produces. Keep it simple, a shared dashboard, a weekly scorecard, or a whiteboard in the office. The format is not important. What matters is that everyone can see the numbers clearly and without having to ask. Visibility removes ambiguity and puts ownership back where it belongs. And then, address issues early. Most accountability problems grow because no one says anything soon enough. A small gap in performance gets ignored for a few weeks, and then it becomes a pattern. Next, it becomes a hard conversation that should have happened in week 2. When something is off track, address it quickly and directly, not harshly, but promptly. A short conversation early is almost always easier than a long one later, and it signals that the standard is real rather than negotiable. The goal is not a system that catches people falling short. The goal is a system that makes it easier to perform well, and obviously when something needs attention. When people know exactly what is expected, can see their progress, and trust that issues will be addressed fairly and quickly, most of them rise to the standard. That is what a real accountability system produces. Not pressure, but alignment. Those are very different things to work inside of. That's all for today. These expert opinions were written by David Finkel, co-author of the book Scale: 7 Proven Principles to Grow Your Business and Get Your Life Back. For more expert opinions from today's top business coaches and thought leaders, go to Inc.com/lead. Be sure to come back tomorrow for another helpful tip from Inc.